Hi, everybody. It's Ben Heller, and today I'm with Paul Barnes. And we are going to talk about the top 5 ways mobility RFPs are broken. And before we get started, I've known Paul for only a few weeks, but we just hit it off and talked about procurement, supply chain, RFPs, and we got to thinking, hey, this is pretty interesting. I think others would want to hear it. So, Paul, can you give everyone a quick introduction?
Yeah, hi everybody, and yeah, thanks very much for this, Ben. So I'm Paul Barnes. I've been in the industry for nearly 30 years, and I started a consultancy, Inspire Global Mobility Consulting, and one of the key areas is helping people on their RFP journey, just with some key learnings, make it a little bit simpler, a little bit more effective for them. And yeah, thanks, Ben, because when we spoke, I think, we respect each other, but we've got some slightly different views as well. So I'm
Yeah.
looking forward to this conversation.
Yeah, likewise. And so why don't we get right into it? Top 5 reasons mobility RFPs are broken. Paul, what's the first reason?
Yeah, I think the misuse sometimes or the underuse of an RFI and not really taking the time to really look at what's critical. It could be, data privacy. It could be some aspects in the contracts that not everybody can fulfill. Sustainability is a key area for quite a few companies now, but perhaps not all the providers can, come up to their sustainability values and ideals. So why drag somebody through an RFP or yourself through that evaluation?
Hmm.
If you're going to find out these people, for some very simple reasons, these companies just don't work for us. But yeah, so I like an RFP in the right way. But you've got some good views on this, Ben. Appreciate your
Yeah,
thoughts. Yeah.
I really don't like RFIs. I hate the way that they are typically administered. They look almost exactly like RFPs, but without the pricing. And then often I saw people submitting the same questions that they had in the RFI in the RFP, and you're just like, why? So I personally believe that the RFI concept shouldn't be done in the auditable methodology that an RFP is. It's about learning. You're trying to get as
Mm.
much information as possible and decide, okay, of this pool of suppliers, let's get it down to 5, 6, 7 that are a really good fit that we know are going to knock it out of the park for us. And I think that that is best done by just having conversations with them. Have your questions, key questions,
Mm.
like you mentioned. I think privacy, like and data privacy, data requirements. Okay, well, if that's a major importance to you and it's going to disqualify people, have that be one of your 10 questions that you're casually talking with them about. But use that time to learn more about that team and organization than you can learn in a traditional RFP response, written word that's put into it on Reba platform or something like that.
Yeah, Ben, yeah, I do agree with you. I mean, you should engage with people, you should meet with people, and and I like your thoughts on that. But I'm still, I would go through what you've said, but I would still use the personally, I would still use the RFI,
All
and
right, we're allowed to have different
but
opinions here, and that's part of what makes this
there's
good.
some
So,
middle ground there.
uh,
There's some middle ground.
the second one thing that I think is kind of broken about this is a misalignment of goals, objectives, or a lack of clarity in the RFP process. And Paul, you had some thoughts on this too.
Yeah, and I think the companies that have been open and said, hey, these are our pain points, these are our goals and objectives, this is the journey that we're going on. They start there being collaborative with their potential providers, and it makes the RFP more engaging. And it's also, I think, it will also allow some companies to say, do you know what, that's not our specialism, that's not our direction of our company. You've listed some major objectives, and that's not us. We know other companies can do that far better. So for that reason, we're out.
Hmm.
And I think it will start getting that openness and that transparency around people saying what they're good at and what they're not, rather than trying to be good at everything and respond to every RFP. But
Yeah.
you've seen a lot of this, Ben. Appreciate your
Yeah,
thoughts.
on that topic, like I think there's too many suppliers invited to RFPs, and there's too many suppliers that are responding to RFPs that they really probably aren't going to win, and they probably should know that going into it. Um, and there's just a tremendous amount of cost associated with RFPs why why waste time, money on this if it's not going to be a fit? So I I feel that there was an in general, there's an underweighting and an undervalue of the corporation communicating, here's who we are, here's what our program looks like today, here's where we're not happy, here's our vision and where we want to go. And like that dialogue that could potentially happen with suppliers ahead of time, that collaboration, I don't think that there's enough time before an RFP is released where the mobility team, procurement are actually learning from the suppliers that they intend to invite to the RFP, deciding, okay, here is what we want to accomplish, and then go sending out that RFP. I think that's a missed opportunity. And too often after the fact, you're playing catch up and, oh, that's not what we bid for. And so I think that there's a lot of effort that could be spent there, that spending the time and energy up front will pay off dividends in the back end.
Totally agree, and I think that's one of the biggest broken reasons, RFPs are broken, and there's good people out there with good intentions, but they just run out of time. And I spoke to somebody, and that they said right out of the gate, their last RFP, all these questions came at them. They weren't prepared for them. They didn't see them coming, and it just put them behind, and it put the pressure on.
Yeah,
And our next one, clear service specifications, and majority of the questions they and many had were on the service specifications. And this particular person I know pretty well, they were open and said they left it too ambiguous. They should have stopped and really nailed down what they wanted.
hmm
And then, we know what's coming now, and then people made their own decisions on what the service specifications, what the client wanted. So there were the chance for like pricing comparison just flew straight out of the window,
absolutely.
and it
Yeah,
got very restricted. It's just, yeah.
yeah. So I think, clear service expectations, it's really challenging, especially in the space where you're not sure if this company, the supplier actually performs it, or they're farming it out, or like there's a lot of supply chain management like that goes on, and you're not really sure if you're making an apples to apples comparison on services. It's challenging, and I think what that gets exploited in the pricing, which is our fourth thing where it's broken. And it's broken on pricing in a lot of ways. So I think first off, it's broken in cost. I don't think that companies adequately understand what their costs are to actually submit a price. You've got your
Mm,
day job, but now you're doing less of that and more of building an RFP, doing research, getting procurement involved, writing the RFP questions, making sure that everyone on the team agrees and aligns to it. All the regions around the world that are participating agree and align to it. Um, all of these come with opportunity costs, and that's before you even get to the point where you submit it and now you've got the data in. Now you're all spending a lot of time reading and scoring and getting everyone to meetings to meet with the final three suppliers, tech demos. That's a lot of cost. And Grable came out a few years ago and said that the average cost of an RMC to respond to an RFP was $30,000 per RFP. That's the average cost.
yeah.
Any, and that's mind blowing. So I think that, regardless of the pricing that's in the RFP, there's so much cost to administer that. And I think that there's a lot of opportunity for people to iterate and improve with their existing suppliers and say, look, rather than run an RFP process, it's going to cost us $100,000. It's going to cost you $50,000. Why don't we just work together and take that value and build it towards collaboration? So I think there's a lot of opportunity there. And then like you've got a lot of costs in the RFP with where you have things that are huge amount of variables,
Mm,
moving, temporary housing. These things are like nearly impossible for a procurement department that's been in this industry for 3 months to actually go and procure it and lock in rates in a way that's effective. So
mm.
I could rant on this for 45 minutes, but Paul, what are your thoughts here?
Yeah, no, I'm with you, Ben, on a lot of that, and also on the pricing. Historically, what people have, is complete a spreadsheet, and very often procurement, global mobility, they don't add up and think, wow, that's actually 20, 30,000 rates I've just asked for.
Yeah.
How am I going to use those? you know, and fair play, if you want to be in the game, and you know you have to complete these pricing templates as a provider, but you know there's got to be a smarter and a better way of doing this. And then all that a lot of people do is they add up, you know, one times across every service, or they try and get a little bit smarter, and you know we use more of this service, less of this service. But you
Mhm.
know, very few people that I've met actually take their historic data and actually build that into the back end of, you know, a spreadsheet, and actually say, do you know what, the total cost of ownership last year through all the services and the home and host combinations we had, this would be the total cost of ownership. I don't
Mhm.
see many people doing that, and that's one thing on a basic level that I can help people with, and are helping people. But you know, why, you know, we spoke, and I reached out because I was really inquisitive on, you know, technology and, you know, and price point, you know, and you know, I think some of the reasons you came up with of how you can help people on an RFP journey on the pricing, particularly on a baseline. You know, we spoke about the baseline. A
Yeah.
lot of companies don't have a baseline. If you don't
Mhm.
have a true baseline, where can you really go from to measure what success you've had, and if it has been successful? So
Yeah, I
yeah,
I think the baseline, I see, every RFP that I've ever worked on, and I've worked on over 150 of these, they've always had a baseline because that's the procurement ideology and methodology that's required of you. What I think is missed out is that all those costs that went into the RFP, the switching costs, because you don't just select the supplier and you're up and running. No, it takes you months to get back to just the standard and blocking tackling you already have. I don't think that those costs get in there. And I often on these RFPs, the incumbents are really at risk and not necessarily so. I think that there's ways to iterate and improve beyond the traditional RFP that aren't leveraged often enough. But and then like with I appreciate you saying kind things about our technology. I would argue that in the RFP process, technology is overrated. Uh, and what I've seen in the 100+ meetings that I've had with suppliers and where I'm managing clients, uh, they look at the visual design of the technology, and
yeah.
there's an emotional connection to it.
And a perception starts on what this journey could be rather than reality. It's
That's it. That's it. And all the analytics that you did, all that work sort of goes out the window. Emotions take over, and all decisions are emotional, but we're trying to make an educated decision, and that data that we've been collecting and scoring through the process, that I think is important to hold on to that and not let emotions override it. But I see technology really hijacking those emotions really often in these processes. So with that, the last thing that we talked about, the fifth reason is I personally don't think RFPs are good tools for learning. And
yeah,
they're used as good as tools for learning. And I don't think that what they are. I think what RFPs are, in a nutshell, is an auditable justification for a decision that an organization makes. And too much of the learning process happens during the RFP and not enough upfront. And I'd say that the biggest thing that I would like anyone to walk away with is do that research up front. Talk to
mhm,
your suppliers. You can learn more from salespeople in this industry than any book RFP can teach you. They want to educate you. They want to be a trusted advisor. And so I think leverage them up front for that, and then the RFP for your decision and evaluation process. But Paul, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this.
yeah. No, I agree with you, Ben. And back to, you know, I think the companies that actually meet with providers beforehand, because there's a basic human element that comes into everything. You know, if we, you know, Ben, if you were going to employ me, you know, you'd be thinking, do I want to see Paul every week? You know, do I want to engage with this guy? Are we talking similar things? You know, will he challenge me? You know, will he be a good advocate for the company? And I think there's that gut element in this with a provider that sometimes it gets too clinical through an RFP. And so I do agree with a lot of what you're saying, and you know, I'm a great advocate for upfront and you know, a very concise RFI. I take your point on the RFI. It shouldn't be a mini RFP. It should have its own use, and then separately it should complement the RFP and take some of the wording out of the RFP. You should never repeat an RFI into an RFP. But you do need some, my view is you do need some rigor around there,
Sure.
in the questioning. But I think people need to be more concise. They need to
Sure.
think about it more. And back to your point, Ben, you need to invest time. The smarter the questions, the higher the level of engagement, the better the answers you'll get back from people. And I'm a true believer, if you really engage and there's a level of collaboration, you will get really good pricing from a company. If it's disengaged, there's no collaboration from a provider, you will get more stock answers in there. They're harder to evaluate for
Yep.
you straight away. The pricing will be less discussed, less time spent on it. How engaged are we with this company? How much do we want their business? Do we truly want it?
Mhm.
When you have those conversations as a provider, you have really, really deep conversations on pricing. If you don't have them, you still discuss pricing, but you don't go to that level.
Yeah, there's one point that you made there about conciseness, and
Mm,
and I want to leave on that note. Like I've seen relocation management company RFPs with 250 questions and a whole bunch of like systems operational questions and data compliance questions and things that would take an RMC a couple hundred hours to respond to, and
mm,
that company had 40 moves a year.
yeah.
And like I think we all need to be really focusing on what are the most important questions here. Where is there going to be material differentiation? And a lot of those things can be learned through the discussion process up
Mm.
front. So, Paul, with that, it's been great talking with you. I really enjoyed the
Yeah, I've
conversation.
enjoyed this one.
I hope you all out there found this valuable. But reach out to Paul, connect with them on LinkedIn. I'm sure he would love to talk to you more about this. And but on behalf of both of us, thanks for stopping by. It was great seeing you, and
Thanks, Ben.
look forward to
Thanks,
connecting
everybody.
soon.
Take care.
Cheers, Paul.
Cheers. Bye.